Welcome to Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. We're very proud here at KCHF TV to be able to introduce you to the candidates running for many of the statewide races, including governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, and treasurer. We couldn't include all offices, but we're happy to invite those in those particular offices, and those who accept our invitations are going to be our guests, and we're going to give them a whole half hour of airtime to share with you their feelings about how they want to lead the state. I'm so pleased to have today with me Deb Haaland. You perhaps know her name. She was a congresswoman from New Mexico, and also she was appointed and worked as the Secretary of the Interior for the entire nation, again, from Laguna Pueblo and representing New Mexico in the federal government. We have her in our studio today, so please stay with us as we meet Deb Haaland right after this. Deb Haaland is running for governor. She'll appear on the June 2nd primary on the Democratic ballot, and this is the first time independents and declined estates can vote in a primary election. So if you're an independent, declined estate, you can go to your polling place or ask for a Republican or a Democratic ballot for the first time, so your voice will be heard. And of course, it's important for everybody to have their voice heard. Not all of us can run for office, but we can vote. And I do have a lady in our studio today, Congresswoman, former Congresswoman and Secretary of the Interior, Deb Haaland. Thank you so much for being a part of our program.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
There's a lot to ask, a lot going on, but if you could, and I reached out to some young people and they asked me to ask you this. What would you like to see the state look like in 4 to 8 years?
In 4 to 8 years. So if I'm the next governor, that'd be almost through with my first term. And what I want the state to look like, I want us to have move forward on our clean energy. I want children to have, to read sooner, and our rankings in the schools and our public schools to be better. I'd want to make sure that we are filling the jobs to build affordable housing and all of the infrastructure needs that we have. I want those jobs filled by New Mexicans. And so, and I want families to be able to afford to pay rent and buy groceries in the same month. It's really difficult for some people right now. So hoping that we're in a better place in 4 to 8 years.
We have, of course, another issue is the crime situation here in Albuquerque in the state of New Mexico. That's another concern for all of us. Actually, one of my candidates who on the air said he was walking down the street and a person got shot. It's like, I'll stop there. We know what's happening.
Yes.
My friends who have businesses, homeless people who are camped out in front to set their businesses on fire, broken windows. I mean, insurance costs. It's tough out there crime-wise, too. As governor of the state of New Mexico, how could you improve the crime situation?
Of course, yes. Well, of course, making sure that law enforcement has the tools they need to get criminals, violent criminals off our streets, to get illegal drugs off our streets. We have a terrible fentanyl problem in New Mexico. We're not the only state suffering from that.
Still.
It's all over the country, and so ensuring that that law enforcement has the tools they need to stop those crimes. I think a lot of property crimes are caused because of substance use. And so ensuring that we can up our behavioral health system, create more opportunities for folks who realize that they can get help for their substance use disorder. And so expanding the opportunities for rehab centers and the like. But yes, crime is something I think we can all, that everyone wants to get better. And supporting our law enforcement, making sure that they have the tools they need, that's definitely a step in the right direction.
We love New Mexico, obviously. You've served as a congressperson, again, nationally as the Secretary of the Interior. So you've worked in the federal government, you worked in our states representing us. But Deb, you were born and raised Laguna Pueblo. I've been in New Mexico 40 plus years. But we're not a poor state, we're a rich state in, of course, culture and weather and money from the oil and gas industry, but we feel like our people are poor, we're last in the rankings, we've been that way for 40 years. How can any of this change and improve? We've tried, I mean, people have tried. We've had governors in the past try.
Exactly.
So what would you do differently to make it happen finally?
Thank you for the question. And first of all, I have an education plan on my website, debhaaland.com. And one of my priorities will be to make sure that kids can read sooner, right? Kids need to be able to read sooner. My child, I was so grateful, learned to read in kindergarten. And I think if children can read sooner, they can learn their math sooner, they can do better in school, right? Reading opens up an entire
But they've been opposed to
opportunity.
Would you like to see the requirement of kids being able to read by third grade? And again, it affects, their reading, it affects their social studies, their civics, their all
one
these
of the
classes.
things, yes, of course, if you can read, you're
The world is
set
open
for
to you.
your
Yep.
educational journey. And so yes, if we can help kids to read sooner, and who are the best people to know if your kids need help? Parents and teachers, right? Teachers are in a classroom with children all day long. They can help us to know which students need reading coaches.
But would you
How can we
require
help?
third grade kids to read before they're progressed to fourth grade?
I think that if children can't read by third grade, they will have a difficult time. And one of our hardest, it's difficult to see that our graduation rates aren't as high as they should be, right? We want children to graduate from school. We want them to have the confidence as they move forward on their educational journey. So I think that children absolutely need to look. We finally passed early childhood education. I think that will be tremendous for helping children to read sooner. So we're going to deploy all our plans and make it happen.
And I looked at your website, very detailed. What's your website so people can look at further details?
It's debhaaland.com.
Oh, that's pretty easy.
Very
pretty
easy.
Except you got 2 A's in
I do.
in Holland. That's not as easy. No.
Yes, my
H-A-A-L.
dad was a third generation Norwegian American, so that's his name.
You've got the 2 A's in there.
Yes.
So education, of course, a priority. Now, again, we have a half hour, but there's so much to talk about, so I'm going to be fast.
Okay.
Affordability, of course, is an issue.
Yes.
Don't know if in the statewide we can do much as a governor. Inflation has wreaked havoc on our goods and services and whatnot. A lot of things have no excuses of what has caused a hamburger to cost $20. But as a governor, you could lower taxes, income taxes. You could eliminate the personal income tax. I understand nationwide that we're second highest in oil producing with the oil and gas industry. A lot of money. We have a lot of money in our coffers, billions from the oil and gas industry. So Texas, who is big in oil and gas, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, they don't have personal state income tax. Could we not, Deb Haaland, who's running for governor on the June 2nd primary, the Democratic ballot, could we not eliminate our state income tax when we have so much money?
So I've said while traveling around the state, New Mexicans need a raise. Right? New Mexicans need a raise. And it's difficult. Some parents have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to keep a roof over their families' heads. As far as the taxes, I feel like I would start with the enhancing the working families tax credit and the children's tax credit, right? Helping New Mexicans to have more money in their pockets at the end of the month or at the end of the year or at the beginning of the tax year. That would really, I think, work wonders for a lot of families.
Meaning if they have children, get a tax credit.
Absolutely, yes.
If
If
you're
you're
kids,
working,
5 kids.
yeah, working families tax credit.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, when I was raising my child as a single mom, the earned income tax credit worked wonders for me. I got back nearly enough money to pay my rent for 6 months. I could pay that up front, didn't have to worry about it. And so I think whatever families can do to have more money in their pockets at the end of the month.
Work on those 2 items.
It
That
would
favors,
really
of course, families
be
with more than 1 child. But what about the rest of New Mexicans who are working and paying state income tax? You don't feel that we're in a position?
Yes, I mean, look, I will work with the legislature in any way possible to achieve that goal, helping New Mexicans to have more money in their pockets. So I'd like to say that this is a team effort, right? We're all going to have to work together to make sure that New Mexicans can weather this storm. We've had, the president put tariffs on everything. That's made things a lot more expensive. People, because of the president, their Medicaid's getting cut. They're kicking people off of their SNAP benefits. And I'll tell you what, I will make sure that the federal government lives up to its obligations to New Mexico also.
And you'd mentioned, I think I read that you received SNAP at one point in your life.
Yes, when my child was young, absolutely. It helped me tremendously.
But then in the news recently, in recent months, when they were discussing the SNAP, we heard on local TV that some families were on it for 30 years and saying, we've been on it for 30 years, we don't want to give up our food stamps.
Well, I used SNAP for several years. It was very helpful to me, right? And then you don't need it anymore.
But what about the families that we've heard just in local media who've been using it as?
I think that some families just live in poverty, right? Some families live in poverty, and sometimes there's no way out of poverty. That's why I'm saying children need to read sooner. If children can get their educations and be successful at that, education can help people to get out of poverty. So there are some people who really need that safety net underneath them. And I was fortunate that when I was 28, I was able to go to college. I did that with scholarships and the help of my tribe. And so I just hope that we can help every New Mexican to work, have a job, and earn a decent living, have health insurance. Nonetheless, I did use Medicaid. I used Medicaid for a certain period of my lifetime, and that's important for people to be able to have. So we should, if people deserve to have those benefits and they qualify for them, then they should have them. What I'm hoping to do is say, New Mexicans need a raise. Let's help them to make a good living, have more money in their pockets, and perhaps they'll be able to weather all the storms on their own.
As you have done.
I've tried. It was never easy, though.
Deb Haaland, life isn't easy.
Yeah,
it isn't easy.
Yeah.
Even with an education, it isn't easy. It's tough out there. Mm-hmm. Another young person has asked regarding these same issues of the Medicaid fraud. We've heard in the news in recent months again about the state of New Mexico and tremendous fraud and waste, millions of dollars in Medicaid fraud. What about the state of New Mexico? What are your feelings? Do you think nationally they're saying, the reporters are saying, yes, it's in every state. What do you know about New Mexico?
We have a state auditor who audits our state funds, right? Who does, that's his job. Our state auditor makes sure that everyone's living up to their obligations for reports and using the money in the way it was intended. And so I know that our state auditor has done a really good job. He's up for re-election also. And so I just feel very strongly that that's what we need to do. When I was Secretary of the Interior, we had an Inspector General at our department who watched out for everything that we did, made sure that we were living up to our obligations to the taxpayers. And that's what our state auditor does here in New Mexico. And so
you feel there may not be fraud?
I'm not saying that because I haven't actually looked into any of those cases. What I'm saying is that is the state auditor's job. And so ensuring that the state auditor has the support to do his job in the best way possible, I think that's the surest way for us to know that New Mexico is operating in the best and most transparent manner.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that point on that. I should have him in here and ask him.
Well, he's running.
Well, but it's a question. You've seen it in the news. We're concerned about what's going on in Minnesota.
Yes, I know that everyone's concerned, and I just want to say that one person or one entity doing something, breaking the law, or doing something they shouldn't do, it shouldn't paint all of us with that same brush, right? There are people who have been in public service for many years who really just want to serve our community, and so I trust that there are more people who want to do good in the world than who don't.
But they are painful.
I'm an optimist. What can I say?
Oh, good for you. Good for you. A couple of other questions from young people, kind of the same area, and then we'll go into other topics you'd like. Person, and I know some of these are federal issues, but people sometimes don't know the difference between local, state, and federal. They asked, should New Mexico be paying for services like Medicare, Medicaid, for people who are in our state illegally?
Right. So I will say that we came out, remember the pandemic? That was terrible. It was a worldwide pandemic that we suffered from. Imagine if we said, you can't get a vaccination if you don't have your citizenship papers. That would have had consequences for a lot of New Mexicans. I feel very strongly that we need to make sure that people are healthy, because unhealthy people get healthy people sick. And if I'm looking out for my child or my grandchildren, I want to make sure that everyone around them are healthy, they have the medical care that they need to make sure that they're not getting sick and making everyone else sick. So I think we have an obligation. As you know, medical professionals, doctors, they take the Hippocratic Oath to offer, to admit health care to people. That's an ethical obligation that they have if they undertake, that profession. And so I just feel that medical care is something different, right?
But they're asking, and so maybe the same thing with the SNAP or the food stamp, same thing people need to eat.
If people aren't healthy, they get sick. And if people aren't eating healthy foods, fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, their immune systems aren't as healthy as they should be. I just feel that healthy communities lower costs in the end, and that's actually in my healthcare plan as well.
Concerning your healthcare plan, another gentleman, he's a nurse here in Albuquerque, a young gentleman in his 30s, asks, and he works in the healthcare profession, asks, why do we have such a problem attracting medical professionals like nurses and doctors? And you do have a detailed plan on your site, but he's asking this, what would you do as governor to attract more medical professionals here?
Exactly. So we just finished this legislative session. There were a few of the compacts, the medical compacts, medical professional compacts that were passed. I want to get all of those passed. I want to make sure that medical professionals, if they have out-of-state licenses, they can practice here until they're able to get their New Mexico licenses. That holds true. We have military bases here. Our active duty service members get transferred here. Their spouse might have a medical license from another state.
You're saying let them practice
let
first
them
before?
Practice here. And so if we have those compacts in place, that is something that will help us boost our numbers. We in my medical plan, we have, enhancing our site readiness fund. If we can make, vacant buildings, for example, you have office space there for a doctor's office. Let's get that site ready so that if a doctor wants to move into that office, it's ready for them to start their business there.
And again, you got the detailed plans on your website.
Yes. So let's, and then I'll just say we spoke to a group of resident doctors toward the beginning of my campaign, and they're not making enough money. They have a hard time paying off their student loans. They need to be able to afford a place to live. So I'm grateful that the legislature doubled down on their effort, their program to help medical students pay off their student loans. I'm still paying off my student loans, so I know what that's like. And so I think there's a lot of ways we can support medical professionals coming to our state.
Of course, they're concerned about the price of insurance.
Exactly, and they also, of course, passed the medical malpractice bill, and so now it will be up to the insurance companies to lower their premiums and make sure that doctors can practice here. And so there's a lot to do.
There's a lot to do.
I'll just say my sister was a registered nurse for 40 years. She retired recently, And I was so proud of the work she did. She went to UNM nursing school. And so I look to, I look to those in the profession to inspire others to take that route. We should start inspiring our children when they're in high school, right? Middle school and high school, to think about a medical profession. Because yes, we will have worse shortages in years to come. In 10 years, it will, if we don't do something about it now, it will be worse. So yes, attracting, if we get our scores up in public schools, that will also attract doctors and nurses to come
because
to New
they
Mexico.
want their children educated.
Absolutely.
They don't want to, as people are highly educated, don't want to come to the state of New Mexico and not have their children educated properly here. Regarding medical professionals, they're business people here in the state of New Mexico. Michelle, who is from Las Cruces, has this question. She and her husband are starting a small business owners, but they're having a tough time. A lot of obstacles in the way, a lot of red tape, and they went down to Las Cruces to open a business, and they're having a tough time. And they're taking the risks. I say small business people are the backbone of our state. As you were a salsa maker beginning, and I am a business person as well. We take the risks, but when there's so much government regulation and tape, it's tough.
Yes.
And businesses don't want to come here because of stuff.
We,
but all of us here who want
absolutely.
our businesses to flourish, like Michelle and Las Cruces.
Yes, we should have a one-stop shop where you can just fill everything out at once. It can be confusing. I know this firsthand. And so a one-stop shop, and yes, you're right, small businesses are the heartbeat of the New Mexico economy. So we should do everything we can to make sure they can open their doors and be open for business here in New Mexico.
What could be done?
We could have a one-stop shop. We could have an office, a state office that helps small businesses to do everything they need to do at once, right? Get their business license, file their paperwork, get a gross receipts tax number, know how to file their taxes online. All these things could be done all at once instead of going from the Secretary's of State's office to the Taxation and Revenue
office.
If we had everything in one place, it might make it easier.
State, county, and local, because with my business, I've got to do something with tax and rep. I got to do something with the county, with the city license. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yes.
It's instead of producing, and I feel this way with taxes though too. It's all this energy doing our taxes instead of making a producing things for the state. There's just so much paperwork and underwhelming things. Lastly, my question, then you get time to point out what you want to share.
Sure.
The oil and gas industry, again, gives us billions of dollars, a lot of it going to education, a lot of it going into our reserve funds. We have billions of dollars. What is your feeling about this industry in the state of New Mexico? And do you want them to leave? They're talking about leaving southeastern New Mexico.
They're not leaving.
I know they're not
the gas
leaving.
and oil industry isn't leaving New Mexico. But look, when I was Secretary of the Interior, we gave millions of dollars to New Mexico to clean up legacy pollution, right? Cap orphaned oil and gas wells, clean up abandoned mines. And I feel like legacy pollution is something that plagues New Mexicans, so that will be a priority for me. And I think the gas and oil companies.
What's legacy pollution? Pollution of these
so if
that was left?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. An orphaned oil or gas well is one where the owners, we don't know who owns it anymore. It's changed hands so many times, and it's just sitting there out in the open with methane coming out of it, right? You need to cap those so that the gas isn't escaping any longer. And it's hard to find the original owner or the owner that it passed to. This is why it's called an orphaned oil and gas well, because it doesn't have a family.
You put
right?
money, federal money, our federal tax dollars into solving.
Yes, and we did that all over the country, and we did it here in New Mexico. So I think the gas and oil industry can help us play a role in that cleanup.
Okay.
I also think that I've heard from some folks in the gas and oil industry. They are actually using clean energy for their operations, right? So they recognize that things need to be modernized and we need to move forward with our clean energy. And so I don't think that having this source of revenue should stop us from moving forward with our plans to move to zero emissions or 100% clean energy. We have all the sun, we have all the wind. Those are two of our natural resources that will serve New Mexico well for many years to come.
Deb Haaland running on the Democratic primary ballot. June 2nd is the election. We have a minute left. What would you? Well, no. What now? These were all what the young people. What I had. What would you like to share that I haven't touched upon? And I'm sorry, there is just 30 seconds left. But you got it.
That's okay. I'll just say, I'm Deb Haaland. I want to be the next governor of New Mexico. I was raised in a military family. My dad was a career Marine. My mother was in the Navy. That's how they met. My mother went on to serve in the Bureau of Indian Affairs. She was a federal employee for 25 years and worked in Indian education. And I raised my kid as a single mom. I know what it's like. I know the struggles of everyday New Mexicans, and I just feel that I'm ready to ensure that everyday New Mexicans have a little bit more money in their pocket. They can see a doctor when they're sick. They live in safer neighborhoods, and that they can have the education that their children need and deserve.
Woo! We've been working on that for 30 years, 40 years, but you're hoping for the same thing that we're all hoping for. So thank you for that. Appreciate you being on this program, KCHF TV, and Issues and Answers, and for serving as a public servant. Appreciate you as well for that. And thanks again, KCHF TV and Issues and Answers. For this program, I'm Diane Kinderwater. Those candidates who have accepted our invitation will be introduced to you just like Deb Haaland was today. Again, she's running on the Democratic ballot, running for governor, and the election for the primary is June 2nd, and the general election is Tuesday, November 3rd, and that's just around the corner. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater, is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program, email us at info@kchftv.org or call us at 505-345-1991. Join us again for Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater.